Rapper Lil Nas has been making headlines of late due to his new unofficial Nike Satan shoes. These shoes are no longer on sale after selling out in under an hour. The shoes went for $1,018, making them a pricey purchase, but it's not the cost of the shoes that worry many people. The satanic implication of the shoes, featuring actual human blood inside the shank, has many people outraged. Whether you're religious or not, it's a pretty weird concept and has many people buzzing, which was the obvious motive this entire time. This got me thinking, however. One would think that this would be the only product in history to ever use human blood. However, you'd be wrong. So in this video, we'll check out 4 other products that used actual human blood in them. Vincent Castiglia is an artist with a vision in blood. Since 1982, he has been painting portraits using a mix of watercolor with his own actual blood. Many of these paintings are large and extravagant. These paintings are depictions of death or human beings in several states of decay. These works of art have captured the minds of several art collectors, ranging from those into the occult, as well as heavy metal groups such as Slayer. Guitarist Gary Holt of the band Slayer actually had Castiglia paint a design for his guitar in 2016, using both Holt and Castiglia's blood combined. According to Jeremy Schott, owner of the Dark Art Emporium, Vincent's work is very cathartic. Art can be subjective and can be interpreted in many different ways. However, according to Vincent, his art is a monochromatic tableau that examines life, death, and the human condition. The average onlooker may think that these pieces are about death, eternal suffering, or even Satanism. However, Vincent claims that they're about life, death, and the transience of human beings, as well as the pitfalls of mortality. Whether you find his art disgusting or not, you have to admit that his artwork is so detailed to the tiniest blood stroke that it's almost like peeking through a window with bloodshot eyes. Castiglia began using blood in 2000 while working as a tattoo artist. He says that he uses blood because it makes him feel closer to his art in a way that he's never felt with any other medium he's worked with. According to Vincent, he also had a very abusive childhood at an early age with his mother, which left him wishing for death. That was until he discovered his craft, and he says that every blood drop represents all that pain and emotion he felt as a child, and in a way this helps him with all of his trauma. While art can be used to deal with lifelong issues and trauma, some art is just downright weird. In 1977, international rocker group Kiss would work with Marvel Comics in creating a comic book out of the own band members' blood. Being no stranger to satanic themes and the occult, worked with Stan Lee's printing facility, where a registered nurse would draw all 4 of the members' blood. The blood would then be mixed in with a red ink for print. The comic would feature Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, as well as the Avengers as supporting characters. Being a huge publicity stunt similar to the Lil Nas incident, the stunt would be a success, with them selling 500,000 copies and becoming Marvel's best-selling issue for over 13 years until 1990's relaunch of Spider-Man. Back in the day, this comic would go for $1.50, but now prices can range all the way up from $400 a copy online. Heavy metal juggernauts Metallica are no stranger when it comes to working with bizarre artists when it comes to making music. However, in 1995 for their Load album, the band would take things to an unprecedented extreme. Lars Ulrich and guitarist Kirk Hammett would push visual boundaries for the next album cover, working with controversial artist Andre Serrano. Serrano was a controversial artist, hated by many with conservative values, for featuring artwork such as the time he dunked a photograph of Jesus Christ on a crucifix in what can only be believed to be his own urine. The 1987 work was titled Immersion, and 30 years later still enrages many who see it, leading to much of Andre's art being vandalized. James Hetfield wouldn't be as art savvy as his bandmates and would claim that even he doesn't think they're actually into such weird art, and just pretend to be as a bit of a goof among bandmates. Even so, to Hetfield's chagrin, Load would feature artwork from world-renowned artist Andre Serrano, who would use his own blood and semen in an art piece titled Semen and Blood 3. However, you don't need to worry. While Andre used his blood and semen for the art piece for the cover, none of his actual blood or semen is contained in actual copies of Metallica Load. Metallica would also work with Andre one more time on their next release a few short years later, with Metallica Reload, with this time Andre using urine and blood. It wouldn't be much of an understatement to say that Stan Lee put his blood, sweat, and tears into his comic books in the early 1940s. However, one such case could be taken as literal. In 2018, before the death of the acclaimed comic book artist, vials of blood would be drawn by a woman who would be his personal nurse. This blood would later be found in several Marvel comics such as Mighty Thor number 700 and a variant cover of Rise of Black Panther number 1. These comics would range from $500, claiming to be hand-stamped with Stan Lee's solvent DNA ink. Before Lee's death in 2018, there would be reports of people trying to take advantage of Lee, using him to make money in any way possible. Stan Lee would unfortunately go through a lot during his final years alive, with people even trying to forge checks for $300,000 by forging his signature. In an even more bizarre twist, a post made on a random third-party comic book forum stated that the blood was used in the comics with Stan Lee's consent, and were going to be featured in a comic book wave after the Las Vegas mass shooting. Many people, however, don't believe that this is the case. My question is, if they were really donating the blood for the Las Vegas mass shooting, wouldn't they have said so in the comic book at some point? Was any of that money even donated to anyone? Wouldn't Stan Lee have openly said something about this if this was the case? It seems that we may never know, because Stan Lee would unfortunately pass away a few short months later after this incident. From blood being used for painting sadistic portraits to blood being stolen for profit, this was 4 weird examples of blood being used in products that were sold to the public. Now, am I saying that any of these examples are weirder than the Lil Nas blood shoes? That's still pretty weird and completely disgusting in my opinion, but it does show you that while many of these examples range from incidents happening decades ago to some more recent with the Stan Lee blood stolen, you never know what sick things companies will do next to try to gain publicity in the eye of the public.